Hello, this is going to be part 6 of The Universe is a Mind, and I've been giving it a lot of thought this week, and I keep going back to the quote from A Course in Miracles that says you should forgive a brother that's wronged you because what has happened has actually not happened, that this realm of the physical, as we say physical, is actually illusion. And I started to think of a giant scale of like a ruler, and it's got meters, and then it's got centimeters, and then it's got millimeters, and each time the scale gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And if you take the universe in terms of scale, we exist in this what we call physical universe at a place where we can measure units of size that are relevant to what we're looking at. But if you go down to a microscopic level, even if you go down to the level of atoms, you can't see them with your naked eye. What we see with the naked eye is an interference pattern made up of colours and photons, and we can only see down to a certain size. Even with a microscope gives us a greater ability to see small, but it's nothing like small compared to as small as you can get. But then as small as you can get isn't actually as small as you can get. It's as small as we can measure. But if my assertion is correct that the universe is a mind, and that mind creates I don't know whether they'd be concepts, blueprints, you could call them all kinds of things. The mind creates creative thoughts, and that there are two halves to the universal mind. One is the creative mind, which I call creatronic consciousness, and then there's the responsive mind, which is the part that becomes the construct, so that's formatronic. The two halves must communicate. So when a creative aspect of the mind has a thought to create, the formative mind must have the potential to become that built into it. So creative mind says, I want a hydrogen atom, and formative mind says, how big is that? It clearly can then take on that size. What mass is it? What spin, valency, physical qualities? So there's clearly a communication between the creative part of the mind and the part that manifests what has been created. But we are stuck as human beings. We've got, hands for feeling, we've got eyes to see, we've got ears to hear, but these things only work at a particular scale. When you go down below a certain size, we're deaf, dumb, and blind in the true sense. If it's smaller than light waves can interfere with, we say it's invisible. We can then use an electron microscope because the wave size of an electron is actually much smaller than the waves of light, and it's the interference that occurs in the wave patterns that gives us what we see as a visual image. But with the aid of an electron microscope, we can go down even a bit further. But then if you start to talk about string theory, you go down to an example I was given was that if Wembley Stadium was full of 5-inch pieces of string, heaped up, that would be a scale model of a hydrogen atom. So that's very, very, very small. We've got nothing that can measure that. So if these actual pieces of string are consciousness units themselves, and that they can take on any quality that they're given, they can behave in any way that they're told to behave, then there's nothing we can use to measure them, because all our instruments are actually quite stable and they're at the gross level. So compared to the thing we're trying to measure, our instruments are massive. And what we know from quantum mechanics is that when you try to observe a a phenomenon happening, such as the two-slit theory, the very presence of an observer actually influences the outcome. So there's as Schrödinger points out, things exist in an unmanifest state, in an indeterminate state. They're neither waves or particles, but actually observing influences them. So this is the problem when you're trying to understand the nature of thought. We don't have any machinery that we can use to examine it. We don't have any experiments we can set up to investigate it, because the fact that we try to investigate it would mean that we have intentions, and our intentions could quite easily manifest the very thing that we're trying to find, which wouldn't be there if we had different material, different intentions. I'm losing my words, I'm sorry. So it's a very complicated thing, and I think this is where science will draw a line and say, well, it's not science now, it's some kind of voodoo, or it's artistic fantasy or something. But at the lowest level we can get now, which is quantum, we know that mind does affect matter. So here we are, and then of course you look at what happens in the rest of the universe and across the galaxy, and we make assumptions that things that happen at our scale that we can perceive are consistent throughout the universe. But then we see very strange phenomena like dark matter travelling through light matter, and it doesn't seem to affect it. There's nothing that we know of physically that can, pass through and out the other side without causing some kind of an explosion or distortion or changing velocity. So the assumptions we make that we can understand this physical universe only through empirical scientific research, I think are starting to fall down. So I was talking to my friend earlier, and I said that in the Course in Miracles it says that there's no order of difficulty in miracles, and it's always puzzled me for years, because I thought, well, surely to move a mountain must be harder than to move a matchstick. But when you think that even a mountain is a construct made in the mind of the universe that creates an illusion that we see as a mountain, when you ask the universe to move the mountain, you're asking the universe to change one illusion for another illusion. And we think, wow, how's it do that? And the universe says, dead easy, dead easy. That's my thought for today. That's as far as I've got with it. I think that it would be interesting to try and conceive of a way, and I suppose because I'm asking that I can conceive a way, or someone can conceive of a way, I'm asking the universe is going to send that way. It would be very interesting to conceive of a way that we could investigate mind, the qualities of mind, what it does. And again, I must emphasize, I'm not talking about brain function, I'm talking about intelligence. So maybe it'll come to me this week. I'll talk soon. Thank you for listening. Namaste.